Hi everyone, Taylor from Doom to Fail. Here is a late Sunday re-release for you. This is episode 17, part 2 on Scott and Laci Peterson. This is when we were doing like very classic true crime and history episodes about couples. So obviously these two are going to come up. There's like 99% of me that knows that Scott did this. And then there's the 1% of me that is like, he was a terrible husband and he was stupid, but he was also just like a 27-year-old kid over his head. And there's that thing where like other pregnant women in the area had gone missing. So I think since this episode, one of the Innocence Projects has taken up his case, which absolutely does not mean that he is innocent, but it means they're going to take a second look at it. So I don't know. That's interesting to see how that might unfold. As a reminder, we have our first 26 episodes. We did 2 stories per episode, and then they got pretty long. So now we release Mondays and Wednesdays, usually 2 separate episodes per week. But we decided to re-release all of our old ones as separate episodes as well. So next week we'll be back with we're releasing episode 18. So episode 18 is on Bernie Teed and Ed and Lorraine Warren. So widely different stories, but 2 really fun ones too. So look for those next week. But for now, here is the story of Scott and Laci Peterson.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Thank you for sharing that story. I'm going to transition us over to the true crime side of today's stories. And through the power and magic of audio editing, nobody's going to know that I totally screwed up the original link for this call.
Perfect.
So
Perfection.
I'm heading back into spousal death territory today.
Right.
It'll be a really exciting one. So this one's a pretty infamous one. It's kind of long ago enough to where, I don't know, it doesn't hit as hard as some of the more recent ones I do. I'm going to cover someone that gets confused with somebody else I covered already in the past. So it's California, and this guy gets confused with somebody else in the past. Taylor, do you know who I'm talking about?
Is it Scott Peterson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cool guy himself, the coolest dude in the world.
That blonde.
The blonde, cool
shit.
dude.
Yeah, I'm ready.
This case, like I said, it's a while ago. This case is from 2002, but it received renewed attention recently when some jury misconduct during Scott's original trial was discovered.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, and his sentence was appealed. This literally just happened like 5-6 months ago. So it's pretty recent. But spoiler alert, Scott is still in jail. So the latest attempt at freedom also didn't work. So
For the best.
Let's get into our main characters, starting with the man himself, Scott Peterson. At the time of these crimes, Scott was 30 years old. He was originally from San Diego. His parents had 6 kids in total, but Scott was the only one they had together. So a lot of half siblings.
Oh, okay. That
siblings.
I feel like that's okay.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, what, 2, 3, and then there's one that you have together. So
Yeah.
Scott, one thing to his credit is he was a born golfer. He was incredibly, incredibly good at golfing. He consistently ranked near the very top of golfers in his age bracket and even won a golf scholarship eventually to Arizona State University.
Cool.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to start in on my editorial stance on my opinions of this guy.
Okay.
Right off the bat, I'm going to flag 2 things that annoy me.
Okay.
Arizona State University and being exceptionally good at golf at a young age.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Tell me why.
Okay, so during this time period when Scott would have been at ASU, Playboy magazine ranked it as a top party school in the country.
I knew that about it. Yeah.
Okay. I just picture fraternities, frat bros. I picture a lot of popped collars.
Yes.
Yeah,
I feel. I mean, it was always portrayed as a place to me that you don't necessarily go to learn. Even at a party. I don't know if that's really true, but that was the reputation, and probably because of that article you mentioned.
Well, it's also self-selecting, right? So like if Playboy
Yeah,
says it's a party school, then who goes to that school?
exactly.
Yeah, there's not a lot of Einsteins graduating from ASU. Although look, if you went to ASU, God bless you. Maybe it's turned into a good school now, but it's just like when I think about it, I just think of like girls in bikinis and guys pouring terrible beer on them. I don't think
Yeah.
about like academics and rigor of that sort.
Yes.
When it comes to the golf bit, I will admit, I don't play golf. I've tried it. I don't like it. And I will admit that I'm actually really impressed by people who are really, really good at golf because it is so difficult to get good at. It is deceptively hard to golf. Have you ever golfed, Taylor?
I've like mini golfed. I've never like actually golfed.
It's so hard. It's like
Yeah.
you're using a stick to hit a tiny ball hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yards towards a tiny, tiny little hole with like a bunch of shit in the middle of it. With
Yeah.
trees and like sand traps and lakes that usually have alligators in them. Like it's crazy difficult. So it's actually really impressive when someone's really good at it. My issue is his dad was really good too. He was beating his dad at golf by the time he was 14 years old, which is just weird. Is that weird? Like is that like
No, that's great. For a 14-year-old boy, it can be grown-up sized. I don't know. I feel like
but like I don't know if I don't so again I don't have kids so I don't know what this is like but I'm like go go wrestle go play baseball go play basketball go to theater school like golf why is your socialization activity and your athletic endeavors putting you in the same category as 67-year-old dentists like I go hang out with
I
your
mean,
own type like
go hang out with your own type. I
that
don't know.
sounds really bad I have to edit that out.
Oh my God. So, okay, Tiger Woods turned professional by the age of 20. So I feel like, he was obviously, I mean, I didn't watch the movie, but like obviously he was like very stressed out his whole entire life, but he definitely did it his whole life. The Serena and Venus Williams turned tennis pros at the age of 14. Like
But you don't think that tennis is different than golf?
tennis and golf are both very posh sports. I've
Wait,
never been to a
well,
tennis match.
hold on. You've never been to a tennis match?
No.
Okay, do you know who like some of the better tennis players are?
Yeah.
Okay, are any of them 68 years old?
No.
Okay,
Oh,
so
so you're saying everybody's old in golf?
yeah.
Well, but that gives them a long time to be. I mean, I don't care. This isn't.
This isn't a hill to die on. I get it. I get it. I get it. To me though, it's just like
Sure.
there's something about him where it's like you tie ASU and the golf thing, and you're just like,
I mean, if you
ooh,
already don't like him, then like that's gonna. Yes.
that might put
I-
you over the top.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm gonna keep harping on the golf thing because he was crazy good at this. So when he was at ASU, because again, he got a scholarship to ASU for golfing, and he was in the same golf team. He was on the same golf team as Phil Mickelson, who, if you don't know, is probably one of the most famous and recognizable golfers in the country.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like it's Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, basically. Scott got kicked off the team because he took a kid named Chris Couch, who was also on the team drinking when Chris was underaged. And Chris's dad complained because, he complained to the coach of the golf team and got Scott kicked off the team because he was just a helicopter dad, right? He was like, my kid's trying to become good at golfing. And you have another golfer on this team who's just taking a kid out, getting him hammered. He's a bad influence, kicking this guy out of the team, which he did.
Yeah.
Chris was actually really good. So he also ended up becoming a professional golfer on the PGA Tour. Scott was in the same ranks as these two professional golfers.
Wow.
I mean, that's impressive.
Very
Despite all the shit I literally just talked.
Well, that's what I mean.
Nobody sound right. I can talk shit.
No, I know.
So later, he would bounce around to a few other universities because at that point he got kicked out of ASU because the golf scholarship went away when he got kicked off the team. He eventually would graduate with a degree in agricultural business. That was what he focused on. While he was in college, Scott worked at a restaurant, and while working at that restaurant, he met a girl named Laci Denise Rocha. I think it's Rocha. It's Rocha. Rocha or Rocha? It's Rocha, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She was also a college student at this time, and she was studying horticulture. The two would get friendly and eventually start dating. They'd move in together, and in 1997, got married. It was a pretty quick turnaround time.
Yeah. And they're
Scott
really
would-
young.
Yeah, they're really young, super young. Scott would take a job selling fertilizer, And well, sorry, I wrote. I think he took a job for a company that manufactures fertilizer. I don't. Maybe he was like back of house doing P&L statements, or he was selling fertilizer. I'm not 100% sure. He made good money. It sounds like he made about
Yeah.
$5,000 a month, and that was in like 1997 money. So that's probably like $10,000 a month now, give or
Yeah,
take.
totally.
Laci took up substitute teaching, and that was kind of their lives. Around this time, they would also buy a house in Modesto, California. And 2 years later, Laci would get pregnant with a due date that will become relevant later on of February 10th, 2003. In November of 2002, Scott would meet his future mistress. Do you remember her name?
No.
Amber Fry.
Amber Fry.
Yeah. Who he told was single. He told her he's single when they met. So,
Yeah.
obviously. December 23rd, 2002 would be the last time anyone would see Laci alive. We know that she was alive up till 8:30 p.m. on December 23rd of that day because her mom and her spoke on the phone and her sister saw her in person at the hair salon she worked at. So December 23rd, 2002, 8:30 p.m. Last time she's ever heard of again. So I'm going to get into what Scott's versions of the events are, but let's start with what we know for sure because Scott's version is a little wishy-washy. On April 13th, 2003, so just under 4 months from her disappearance, a couple was walking near the shores of San Francisco Bay when they stumbled on the decomposing body of a late-term male fetus
Oh,
washed ashore. I know. I read that and was just like, oh, like it's so clinical. It just, I don't know. It sounds worse saying it that way.
it does. Oh, that's awful.
The next day, so April 14th, someone else found the body of a woman washed up about a mile from where the fetus was discovered. Her head and her limbs were missing.
Ugh.
4 days later, DNA testing would confirm that these were the bodies of Laci Peterson and the son that they had decided to name Connor.
Mm-hmm.
They were obviously autopsied, and mostly everything came back inconclusive. They've been in the water for so long, it's tough to nail things down.
How did he get out of her?
Yeah, so this is the part that's kind of gross. During the autopsy, it was clear that her cervix was intact.
So
okay. Something ripped her stomach open, and the baby was extracted that way.
Like an animal, or like
either an animal or like maybe there's like underwater water flow happening that like just
gross.
smashed her against a rock and then it's severed her. Like, I mean, look, this is the ocean. There's like 80 million ways to be killed by it, and so it could have been an animal. It could have been just currents and rocks and things like that.
Oh my god!
But the only thing that they do know for sure is the baby died in utero. So Laci died.
Mm-hmm.
Baby dies.
Mm-hmm.
They go in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, some way, definitely not through natural birth, the baby is extracted from her body.
Wow.
Her body was really badly messed up. So like she had all kinds of broken everything. Like I said, her limbs were missing.
Yeah.
There was no assumptions that the person who killed her took her limbs or did this themselves. This is all natural. Natural. It was all nature that did this.
Oh, that's like that. Is that the beach where like feet always come up? I'm sure.
So it is the same coast. It's the same coast, but I think that beach is actually in Canada. So I think you got to go a little further north, and it's up there near BC area, Vancouver area.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just because it's the same thing. Because like people die in the water, and then like their whole body gets ripped apart, but their feet stay in their shoes.
Is that what happens?
Yeah, it's because like the shoe like kind of protects your foot. So while like the rest of your body is getting like, eaten by animals and like busted along rocks and stuff, like eventually your ankle will break off, but your foot will stay in your shoe, and the shoe will float away.
Yeah, there was so many clinical things that were going on here. So apparently, the reason the kid wasn't so messed up was because it was still wrapped around the
right. I was gonna say
whatever it's called,
the sack and everything.
The sack. We're so scientific here. Whatever it's called, that was
Placenta.
Still there. Placenta, yeah. So the baby was actually weirdly preserved. I mean, this thing had been dead for like 4 months in the ocean, and they could still figure out all the details of it. Laci, they couldn't. Like that was, I mean, she was just goo at that point. Yeah, not good.
Yeah.
Scott told police. So here we're getting into his side of it. So Scott told police that the morning of December 24th, remember last she was heard of was the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
He left to go golfing, and Laci was watching a Martha Stewart show. He said he came home later that afternoon, found the house empty. And Laci's stepfather would ultimately be the one that ends up reporting Laci missing to the police. So Scott isn't even the one who did it.
Also, like, isn't it Christmas? Aren't
Yeah,
there no
well,
Christmas plans?
it was Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I said people must be like expecting her to come over for Christmas or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna get into there's the Peterson family does a lot of bending over backwards to try and find justifications for why he's innocent. That your point you're raising is one of those points that they also there's a whole separate section about this. I'll get into
I
that.
do. I also have some theories. So continue.
Yeah, I would love to hear them because
Mhm.
it is the lack of evidence here is very very interesting.
Yeah.
So two lead detectives, Alan Brocchini and John Bueller, went to the house and immediately suspected Scott. They were, obviously they're going to suspect the spouse initially, but they would say that he didn't seem very concerned. He seemed kind of disinterested, like he was kind of aloof. Like he didn't seem like someone was like, my 8-month pregnant wife is gone. What? Tomorrow's Christmas.
Right. You should
You
be
know,
more
like,
worried.
you should be more
Yeah.
worried. It gets so gross. The story gets so gross. Later on, Scott would say that he wasn't golfing; he was actually fishing that day. So his story changes, which is suspect. Interestingly, Laci's parents initially defended Scott on all of this stuff. They had his back on all of this. They were like, "There's no way
Yeah.
Scott did it." It took a while for them to slowly change their tune. One of the reasons they changed their tune is that it was uncovered in mid-January, about a month after the disappearance, or like maybe 3 weeks after the disappearance, that Scott had engaged in 3 extramarital affairs, including Amber Fry. So he was constantly cheating on her, basically.
Totally.
You're gonna say something?
I'm just thinking like if you are telling the truth, your story doesn't change because it's the truth, you know? And if you're like saying a bunch of stuff that contradicts itself and is weird, like it's probably because you can't freaking remember what you were gonna say.
You know what? It's funny because I sort of agree with you, but there's something consistent about Scott, which is he had whatever job he had was very leisurely because this guy
Right.
was constantly either fishing or playing golf.
Right. He's out doing white people activities.
It's weird. It's like he just bounced between those two. Like I read at some point in his adult life he'd owned 5 boats. Like he was just constantly doing these activities, and I mean, so and a part of me is like, I don't know, was I fishing that day or was I golfing? I don't know. Like part of it is
Mm-hmm.
that too. So again, as with the mistress from our Chris Watts story, she is kind of the unsung hero. The second this story got attention, because of course it did, because Laci and Scott are good looking.
White people.
Wait, yeah, you can say it. And she's missing and she's pregnant and there's no evidence of anything. So like it immediately went into national attention territory.
Yeah.
At which point Amber went to the police and basically pointed out 3 things. Said, I'm dating Scott. Scott told me he's single. Scott even told me 2 weeks before Laci disappeared that he is a widower. Not good.
Yeah.
Which I think Drew Peterson did too. If I remember correctly, I think Drew Peterson also
Assholes.
said that his living wife was dead. So Amber agreed to let the police record phone conversations with Scott. During one of these calls, this is crazy. And I remember this from when it originally happened, and they called it out. I was like, oh my God, I remember this. During one of these romantic calls they had with each other, this is like days after Laci is missing, Scott told Amber that he was in Paris for the holidays with friends. Do you remember this?
Yes.
He was at Laci's candlelight vigil.
Like she's not gonna fucking see that on TV.
So crazy.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, she's going to find out.
Dude, like this is why I always say when in any situation, the cover up is almost always worse than the crime.
Oh my God, so stupid.
Because
What the
because
hell?
because it is these little spots of details that the jury strung together to say like because we'll find this out later on. There's actually no direct evidence that he did anything to Laci. It is
Right.
all a
Him being an idiot.
thousand little things that he did. Him being an idiot, like just 1,000 little things that they tied together.
Like what? It's just so stupid to be like, I am in Paris. Like, oh, I'm looking at the Eiffel Tower. Like, what a weird thing to say. Like, oh, I decided last minute to fly to Paris with my buddies for Christmas. It's late
Yeah.
here. Bonjour. Like, whatever. What an idiot. This doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
because given time zones, she would have she would have thought it's like 3 a.m. for him because a candlelight
Yeah.
vigil isn't held at like noon.
No,
It's
it's at
only
night.
candlelight, and at that
Yeah,
time,
like
it's just man, not good, not a
it's a.
smart
Did you
guy.
ever watch the show Alias with Jennifer Garner?
No,
It was like it's like kind of dumb, but a very like 90s action show. But she was a spy, but she would pretend that she would always go to San Diego for business, but like really she'd like go to China and like do spy things and come back. And I'm like, why don't you just say you're going to China for business? Because you're still trying to having to like call people and make stuff up. Like, why wouldn't you just be like, oh, I have to go to China, so they would think that the time zone. Whatever. I thought that was dumb. She was always like in San Diego when like, why not just tell them where you are? Or like, I don't understand.
it's
Anyway,
funny when you initially said that. I thought I'd probably prefer to say I'm in San Diego than to say I'm in China because you got to answer a lot more questions when you go to China than when you go to San Diego.
I guess that seems fair.
But then it's hard to keep
Fine.
the truth up.
Yes, it
Anyways,
is.
Scott isn't an espionage professional, so this is
There
not
are
work.
very few, which is another part of our
Yeah,
yes. We'll bring
themes.
that back. Yeah.
So after the bodies were discovered, police put a tracker on Scott's car because they thought he was going to run away to Mexico. This is Modesto, California. He was raised in San Diego and he's in the La Jolla area. He could easily just hop over to Mexico and just disappear if he chose to. That's what they were worried about. I think I mentioned Scott's arrest in one of the previous episodes. It might have been the Chris Watts one, but the day of the Laci and Connor's autopsy, the days after that autopsy happened, Scott decided to go play a round of golf in La Jolla, and it was here at this round of golf game is when he was arrested. This is so funny to me. He dyed his brown hair. He'd never dyed his
Yes.
hair. He had never in his childhood, teenage years, or adulthood dyed his hair, but he did this time. He dyed his hair blonde. He had $15,000 in cash in his car. He had survival gear, camping gear, a ton of extra clothes, multiple cell phones, 2 IDs. He had his own ID and his brother ID, and his brother looks kind of like him. And he went golfing. This is all found in his car, and he goes golfing, which is just phenomenal.
That's all stuff that innocent people do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're obviously not going to get out on what is it when they let you out on cash bail, bond, parole,
Yeah.
bond, yeah, bond. Like you're not going to get out because like you clearly have all the signs of someone who's about to make a run for it. He ends up getting charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and pleads not guilty. His trial started on June 1st, 2004, which would have made it one of the first major TV trials. So this would have been 7 years ahead of Casey Anthony and 9 years ahead of Jodi Arias, other 2 massive TV trials. It's again worth noting there is absolutely nothing directly tying Scott to the deaths of Laci and Connor. Nothing. Like there's no camera footage, there's no confession, there's no he told me, hearsay, alibi, like none of that, which is crazy.
He was just acting weird about it the whole time, but there's no like, here's what happened.
Which is like, is he a genius?
No. But what happened? That's crazy. We don't know what happened.
Yeah, we really don't know what happened. We have a lot of different pieces of the puzzle we can put together. So the prosecution said Scott created 4 homemade cement anchors and tied those to Laci's body and dumped her in the ocean. Again, her body was discovered 4 months after she was in the ocean, probably at the bottom of the ocean until her
Until her limbs broke
her
off.
limbs came off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she was at the bottom of the ocean until her limbs came off, and then she floated to the top. So there's nothing left. There's nothing left to like, oh, she died of asphyxiation. Like what? She's she's wide open. So they don't know. They don't even have a cause of death for her, really.
Wow.
The defense had a host of arguments. They said that sonar equipment used to find the anchors couldn't find the anchors. They said that some random prostitute killed Laci. They said that the baby found was full term, which would have meant that she had been kidnapped and that she'd been held by somebody, which would have precluded Scott. They were basically throwing whatever they could at trying to defend him. Like there really wasn't much to it. The prostitute thing was somebody was stealing their mail, but that started happening like 2 months after Laci disappeared, and Scott reported it. It's like whatever.
Oh, he reported that.
Yeah, it didn't report Laci exactly. And yeah, like I said, by contrast, prosecution really couldn't tie him to the murders in any way. They just had all this circumstantial evidence that pointed to him having some involvement. There were some things that he did that indicated he knew she wasn't going to come home. So, for example, days after she disappeared, he added porn channels to his home cable setup, which would indicate, well, nobody's going to know this is here because nobody's coming home. He sold her car, the car that she had. She had like basically a generic mom car. He sold that and bought himself a pickup. So it was like, well, we're not going to need this car that has room for a back seat in it. So let's get rid of that one. And then the secret recordings of Amber Fry were also played out in court, which definitely did not make him look good.
No.
So 5 months after the start of his trial, Scott would be convicted of first-degree murder for Laci's death and second-degree murder for Connor's. He was ultimately sentenced to death by lethal injection.
Wow.
In 2020, Scott appealed his sentence due to a number of proclaimed errors with his trial, including improper jury handling and allowing of evidence that should not have been admitted. This went up to the Supreme Court of California, which upheld his conviction, but they overturned the death sentence because there was basically a death penalty question during the jury selection period that the trial judge allowed in without proper follow-up. And they said that that could have been enough to get him the death sentence if it wasn't for the judge not asking proper follow-up questions. Basically, long story short, it doesn't really matter. But like during the sentencing phase, they'll ask the jury, like, or during the jury selection phase, they'll ask the people on the jury, hey, how do you feel about the death penalty? And somebody says, I'm opposed to it. And then you're supposed to follow up with that and say, does that mean that you would be incapable of rendering the verdict or the sentence if the law proclaims that's just? And you're supposed to ask that. And if they say, no, I wouldn't be able to do what the law says because that's how I feel about it, then they kick you off. But he didn't do that. He just stopped with like, I don't believe in the death penalty, kicked him off. So basically they only got pro death penalty advocates. So it makes sense. The conclusion makes sense.
Sure.
Obviously, there's more appeals that are flying through all this. There was another one that went to the California Supreme Court in 2015. It was based on the fact that a juror lied during jury selection, but the court decided that wasn't enough. And so they basically said that, yeah, the juror did not tell the full truth, but it was immaterial to the case anyways. So he's still in prison. They took away his death penalty and rendered a sentence of life imprisonment. So he's going to stay there. He's not up for parole ever. Mm-hmm. And that's probably where he's going to end up for the rest of his life. So on the Scott Peterson is innocent side of the aisle, really, it's mostly his family, though I'm curious to hear your theories on this as well. Mm-hmm. They launched an org and a website that's called scottpetersonappeal.org, which like makes you wonder, what is scottpeterson.org? Because was that already taken?
That's a great question. Oh, I see it. Seeking justice for Scott, Laci, and Connor. Wow.
Yeah, so they described their version of events and things the state kind of failed to prove. The website's actually pretty thorough. It's a pretty sizable amount of content on there. And they've actually uploaded his entire trial to a Dropbox folder that you can download and watch yourself. Some of the facts they point to are kind of indisputable and do seem odd, but don't necessarily point towards innocence. So to your earlier point, for example, one thing they bring up is that he had invited his sister-in-law over that night for dinner, the night that he allegedly killed Laci. And he also offered to go pick up a gift basket that Laci and her sister had ordered for their grandpa and then deliver it the next day, which, yeah, why would you do that if you were planning on going home and killing your wife that night? But I don't know, maybe it wasn't as premeditated as we would think it is.
Right. And like, well, first of all, I don't love that this website has like a painting of them being like in love and like holding her belly. Like that's weird. So I think that I can agree. And I think a fact is that Scott Peterson is a creep. You know, he's like a creepy guy. He did some creepy things. He's like kind of gross. But he didn't have any violent tendencies before this, you know, and like there was like nothing that would like be like, oh, he was going to kill someone. And the thing that I listened to or I learned about was like, I don't know if this is true. Just tell me if you've heard this. That there was like a ring of people kidnapping pregnant women in the neighborhood. Did you hear that?
That sounds vaguely familiar. I did not read that in this research, though.
But like, just that like pregnant women were going missing around this time in that area. So like,
What, for sex trafficking or
I don't know.
yeah.
But like, like I feel like there I don't that part is weird because like yes, like you said, like he, had people he invited people over. He didn't like act like he had murdered someone. There's no evidence. There's no like blood. There's no anything. But also like the stuff that he did, he's not like the best husband and dad ever. He probably just like didn't he probably felt relief that he didn't have to do that, because he had all this other shit going on. But I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced that he did it.
Yeah, I get that. I kind of get that.
Well,
The
now
fact that
I
there's
don't want to
no
be in the
direct.
Facebook group very long. Yeah.
Well, so a lot of the jurors were interviewed after the fact, and they all pointed out that if the body hadn't been found, the circumstantial evidence was not enough for them to tie Scott to it.
Yeah.
Because it is all circumstantial. Like there's nothing actually saying. I mean, they okay. So the other things that the family keeps pointing out here is that the cadaver dogs that were brought into the house did an alert.
Hmm.
But like, if he killed her and then just drug her body, like, why? There's nothing. There's no odor that is gonna form in that time frame. So, I don't know. They said that there's something inaccurate about how Scott would have had to have disposed of Lacey's body. They said that he would have capsized the boat if he tried to dump her body the way that they think he would have, because the boat wasn't a big boat and probably wouldn't take a 142-pound body hanging off the side of it. But again, like,
Hmm.
I don't know. Could you tie that to a buoy? Could you tie that to something else and stabilize it that way? Like maybe it did capsize. The boat's small enough to where you can just flip it over. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
There was also this they were received 24 sightings of Lacey after she disappeared around the city. But then I looked
That
this
feels
up.
weird. Yeah.
When I looked this piece up, by comparison, there's been 55 sightings of Bigfoots since the mid 1900s. Like, people say shit, like crazy people do crazy shit, and they're gonna talk, right? So
Yeah, and if you like think you're trying to look for like a pregnant lady, like you'll see pregnant ladies all the time, everywhere,
yeah,
Like once you start thinking about it, you'll see them everywhere. That's funny. Yeah, because I don't think that like I think I'm missing the motive. I feel like the like what was Lacey like? Was she excited? Could
yeah,
she have
yeah. She
like
was super excited. I mean, that's why she literally just watched Martha Stewart videos, because she's trying to be a mom and like is all excited
yeah,
that she's about to be a mom. She's a
yeah.
27-year-old girl. Like she was probably psyched.
I wonder.
But yeah, to this day, he's still in jail, and I don't see a universe unless some huge monumental fact comes out. I personally do think that he did it because
Yeah.
because
But
it's
he's not a
always a
criminal
spouse.
mastermind. I know it's always a spouse. It's probably like it's definitely like the simplest, what's it called? The Occam's razor. The simplest thing is always the right thing.
So you say that about the criminal mastermind thing, but again, this was 2002. So I don't even think the iPhone was out until like 2003, and when it did come out, like very few people had it, and when it did come out, there was no internet on it. It's like all
Yeah,
the
no, it came out in
tracking
2006.
things,
Yeah.
all the
Right.
device tracking that exists today. Today, to do what he did, you would have to be like a mega genius to get
So
away
he
with
like
it.
just made it.
Yeah, he just went past the cusp when the iPhone 3G came out, and like luckily didn't have one because there was no cell phone tracking, right? So they couldn't be able to
Right.
go back and forth. And I doubt.
He had a boat, right?
Yeah, he had a boat.
Did he go out on a boat Christmas Eve?
Yeah, he said that he went. Well, at first he said he went golfing.
Oh, right, right. And then he said that he
Then he
went
said he
on a
went
boat.
fishing. Yeah. Yeah. But again, there was no tracking on the boat. It's not like today when every motorized vehicle has like a mini black box and that tells you what's the accelerator versus the
Right.
ailerons or
And you're like
whatever.
constantly being recorded and like, oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think like,
You're right. He probably did it, but because he acted so fucking weird afterwards. And so I think it's fair that that's the evidence that like he didn't do himself a single freaking favor.
he's at his wife's candlelight vigil calling his mistress from Paris. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, not from Paris,
I know,
pretending to be in Paris.
pretending to be from Paris. I do love the whole dye your hair and do, but it's like, dude, just don't play golf today. Today's not a golfing
Just go
day.
to
Just
Mexico.
leave.
Keep going.
Just
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, like he's definitely like maybe in his like dumb head, he was like, "Oh, I should, you know, like I can run away, or like this is what I need to do or whatever." But
Yeah.
that's weird. Weird.
Yeah, I keep picturing him probably just strangling her to death and then being like, "Oh, what have I done?"
Yeah.
And then like, I gotta
Just
fix
throwing
this.
her in the water.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Just like getting mad and doing it.
yeah.
Wow.
So maybe she found out about the mistress and got into a fight with him, and he got mad because she was in a fight with him. And I don't know. You don't know what makes people pop off.
I know.
But that's what that also lends credence. Like, yeah, he didn't have violent tendencies, but you don't know. Like,
It's true. I don't know I don't know anything about their like life really.
yeah. So
Amber
that's
Frey is
Scott.
on Instagram. She looks good. I followed her.
Really?
She has 5,000 followers. She's very happy. She's
Mm.
religious now. Or maybe she always was. Oh, she's a pampered chef consultant.
What
You
does a
know,
pampered chef mean?
like she like it's like a Tupperware party for pots.
Travel, adventure, family, Christian, LOA. What's LOA?
I have no idea.
Yeah, she looks happy.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right that he's never getting out of jail. And this website his family made is crazy. And this everybody on Facebook, you could probably read these posts forever where they're like, justice, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's he gonna do? You know, like, I don't know. I feel like Lacey she's real cute. She looks real fun. It's too bad that she married a jerk off.
Damn, Amber is definitely living her best life.
Yeah.
Good for her.
He looks like Ben Affleck when he's thinner.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. He could have gone a different route. Just divorce your wife if you want to have a mistress. It's fine. A lot of kids are raised in
Don't
single family homes. Like,
100%.
you'll have a kid. It won't be as he won't be as close to you as you want, and it'll be fine.
You'll be fine. Just leave.
Just
You can
leave.
abandon your family. That's fine. You can abandon your children. That's fine.
Just don't kill.
Don't kill them. Because now everyone's life is ruined. There's no Connor. Lacey's dead, and he has to live in freaking jail for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So you are not a criminal mastermind. You don't know any criminal masterminds.
Yeah. Well,
Don't
you don't
commit crimes.
find criminal masterminds, that's for sure.
Yeah. They don't find you. If you're
They
not
don't
already
find
doing
you.
it, you're never gonna do it.
And that's our lesson of the day. That's our therapy session for psychopaths.
Oh man.
Thank you for listening.
It's sad. I feel bad
Um,
for obviously, that's
everyone.
terrible. Poor Lacey.
Yeah.
Poor everyone.
So that's our show.
Cool. Thank you.
Taylor, do you want to give any shout outs today or no?
Oh, well, definitely thank you to my friend Ben and my friend Lonnie both like separately reached out to me and said that they really loved it. So I really appreciate that. Our friend Andrea also was on a long train ride and listened to it. So she was really liked it too. So super excited that people who are listening like it, and we're going to think of ways to get it in more ears. So that's our next step. I know we said that a couple of times, but we're gonna get it in front of more people.
We actually have an action item now, and we
do.
just need to execute on it.
So pretty good.
Yes, this is the
Pretty
last
good.
time you'll be hearing to us without us being super famous.
Oh, this is it. This is our last. This is it. Good for
No
us.
more going to the grocery store. No more going to coffee shops. Yeah.
No pictures. No
Say
autographs.
goodbye to your anonymity, Taylor. It's over.
Sounds great. Yeah, please continue to follow us on social, Jim to Fail Pod. We're on YouTube. We're on everywhere you listen to podcasts. If someone's like, how do I listen to a podcast? Just suggest Spotify to them. That seems pretty one of the easiest ways to get one. If they have an iPhone, they can do Apple Podcasts. There's Google Podcasts as well. We're on all of those. So take a look, tell your friends. Let us know if you have any ideas. And don't kill your wife. Don't even shoot her in the head, even if she doesn't die.
Don't
That's it.
even shoot your wife in the head.
Yeah.
Don't even.
Don't even do that.
I know it seems
Even
like
if
an
it's
obvious
guaranteed
answer.
she won't die.
I know it seems like an
Don't
obvious
do it.
solution to your problems,
Yeah.
but just try to refrain from shooting your wife in the head.
Yeah. Do you want to live the rest of your life in jail? No. That sounds
There you go.
terrible. So just leave. Go right
Just
now.
leave.
Say, I'm gonna go get cigarettes. Never come back.
Go get cigarettes.
That's how people were abandoned in the 50s.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Taylor. Have a
Thanks,
great,
Mark.
safe drive to LA and
Thank
a
you.
great time there. And yeah, we'll go ahead and cut this off.
Hey, friends.
Thank you all.